I'm Dana Moriello, and you're listening to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses about how they made their wild ideas happen. Today, we're talking to Will Petz, founder of Quiet Events. Here's the wild idea. Build a business where people dance to the music that DJs play directly into their headphones. To anybody walking by, it looks like everyone's having the time of their lives in absolute silence. I wanted to talk to Will because I am a mega fan. I go to silent disco parties powered by Quiet Events at every chance that I get, especially at Lincoln Center, where this summer alone I have danced to salsa, lost my mind to electronic music, watched World Cup matches, and seen documentaries, all while wearing headphones supplied by Will's company. I wanted to meet the guy behind the magic headphones. Stay tuned to hear about the cruise with his parents that inspired Will, how he turned down a deal with Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, and why Quiet Events might be at your next basketball game. Enjoy the conversation. So let's take it back to the beginning before you started Quiet Events.
So my background is actually art. Love to draw, love to be artistic, but then had a lot of mentors and was like, if you actually want to make it and have an easy life or not such a hard life, you may want to choose something different. I decided to go the computer route. And I went to Baruch College, and I had no clue what the industry was like, so I just sent out tons of emails and said, I will do anything, even move computers. I got a job moving computers down on Wall Street for JP Morgan.
Literally just like on a cart, moving computers down the hallway.
Yes, well, you're forgetting, this is, oh my God, 30 years ago, so it was 25 pounds monitors. This isn't flat screens, and that's what I used to do. And then technology was something I got really into and studied computer information systems, learned about laptops and how to fix stuff and break fix. It was great. And then I went to this job fair and got my first position with Lehman Brothers. And that was an amazing experience. This was pre-iPhones. I was on the trading floor, high stress. And then they brought this thing in called a BlackBerry. And my boss was like, hey, can you take over this team? You know, there's this thing, it sounds like it's going to be cool. All the traders are asking for it. So then I started running the BlackBerry team at Lehman Brothers and then started basically coordinating globally all the ways to program, deploy, support it. It was a really great experience.
You said you wanted to be an artist when you first started, and then you found yourself for practical reasons in a finance career, but it sounds like you enjoyed it. This wasn't a concession.
Yes, absolutely. I would say I enjoyed it and found it easier. I have dyslexia. I'm also ADHD, short-term memory, so it's really hard for me to remember things. And for some reason, computers stuck. I could read a computer book and understood it. Not only did I enjoy it, but it was something I was actually good at.
Now, I want to fast forward to you're in this job, and I want to call it your first entrepreneurial endeavor, but I know you had many entrepreneurial endeavors as a kid, so that would be an overstatement. Let's call it your first entrepreneurial endeavor as an adult, if I'm not mistaken, with Random Events. Tell us about starting Random Events.
So I loved to be an events planner. I could never sit still. So from skiing to snowboarding to dance classes, pottery making, jewelry making, flying helicopters, skydiving, international trips, whatever you could possibly imagine, I'm a yes man. I'm like, I am going to do it. I created a group called Random Events and then started doing a lot of things for free. I would negotiate the rate lower than they are and then charge people just a little bit more, but still saving them money. So it was a great way, literally every week, meeting new people, doing fun stuff. It was absolutely the best experience.
Oh, cool. So before Random Events, were you the event planner of your friend group and you were just doing this personally?
Yeah. So I would be throwing snowboarding trips and whitewater rafting trips. And then I grew out of that and said, okay, this needs to be now like a monetized thing. Let me actually make this a company. And then it grew into that. It's also where I learned about contracts because it was my first time bringing someone on as a partner, which I thought was a great move, but it wasn't so great.
That's a big transition from I organize events for my friends for fun to I'm going to monetize this and have a business doing this. Why did you decide to start monetizing?
It is your time. So if I did it for fun, that's great. But you're starting to talk about multiple every week and people started relying on me, right?
See.
So it's like, I can't let people down. Let's do more of this. But now it's like I have a trade-off of, hey, I can't go out and party with my friends. I need to focus on this. So for me to focus on that, there has to be some value for me. That's kind of where that balance comes in.
So when you started Random Events, and I'm starting there because it seems like such an important foundation for what you will later build, Did you envision this as a side hustle? Did you envision this becoming a larger business? What were your goals when you started that business?
The goal was basically, I want to have fun and meet people.
Yeah.
That was it, right? As I started making money, I also knew it wasn't a place that I could make tons of money, right? I had the vision. I understood the model. I understood everything about it. And I was like, I know this will never go to the next level. And to be honest, history shows that every company like me, which was Living Social, Groupon, and all this other stuff, all don't exist anymore because they all failed. I saw that early on, knowing that, yeah, I'm not going to go down this path because I just can't see it being able to scale the way it needs to. So I knew it was always going to be, I wouldn't even call it a side hustle. I would say it was a fun way to learn business.
Cool. I like that framing of it, a fun way to learn business. So then let's fast forward to Quiet Events and how you're now leveraging all of those learnings that you have and getting new ones. So I want to start this part of the story at the point where you were on the cruise with your parents and you experienced silent disco for the first time. Tell us about that and what you're thinking.
Yep. The most stupidest thing in the world, right? Partying with headphones. Doesn't make sense, right? So we were on a cruise and the cruise director was like, there's a thing called a silent disco. You're going to wear headphones. And we're like, that sounds incredibly stupid. But what else are you going to do on a cruise? So like, let's give this a shot. So we put the headphones on and it was like, this is actually really cool. It was very different than what it is today. It was two channels. There wasn't colors. So you didn't know who was listening to what, but it was still a lot of fun. The onlookers were making fun of us and taking videos. I was like, you know what? That was so cool. And came back to New York and I'm like, I already had 20,000 people on my mailing list that like to do cool and fun things. People were coming out to random events because I was the organizer. I was making it fun. And if I wasn't there, they didn't want to come out. And that's even harder to scale.
Yeah.
So when I started Quiet Events, I knew that I had to not associate me to it. So I created a new website to make it look completely separate and that I had no interaction with it. And that was the strategy behind it, which is, hey, I can disconnect myself and then I can have and hire people to do this if it ever did get big. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was just like, hey, let's throw a really cool party that I can make some money on a Saturday night. I didn't think we'd ever get to where we are today.
Was the goal literally, let's throw one party on a Saturday night?
Absolutely. It was, hey, this is cool. I made like $5,000 on a Friday night or a Saturday night. This is really cool. Nice. And that was it. And then, so then what happened is about 2 months in, someone's like, hey, really love these parties. I want to do this at my house. And I'm like, you want me to give you my stuff? So then I was like, sure. And I had to figure out what's a rental agreement. Like, how do you do this? How do you get it? How do you ship it? And then all the stuff that comes out with renting out your stuff. So we started as an events company throwing parties, making revenue from tickets, to then a rental company of shipping stuff out, charging, cleaning, and doing that.
Yeah,
so
that's a big transition.
It's a huge transition.
Absolutely. I want to go back to when you decided to throw that first party, because to me, there's just such a huge difference between I saw something cool and inspiring, and I'm now going to act on that thing. We see so many inspiring things every day. But you can only act on so many. Why was this something that you said, I'm going to do something about it, not just tuck it away?
Like I said, with random events, it's really hard to scale, right? So when I saw this as a rental, like a thing that I can then monetize over and over again. So if the equipment costs, say, $50 and I charge a $15 ticket, after essentially 5 events, I've already paid off that equipment. Then all I'm thinking is pure profit after that. While I wanted to do a fun thing, I knew that this was also a very profitable thing after the fact. However, at that time, you're talking now 15 years ago, no one ever knew what it was in New York. No one was ever doing it. It was also a risk because I had people around me in the finance industry telling me, well, who would ever do this? Why would you?
Wow. So for these first parties, are you using your personal savings? You're just buying these headphones yourself and doing this?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So researched, went to different countries, and then, like most people do, we end up manufacturing them in China.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you went to manufacture them. These were not even off the shelf headphones.
Yeah.
So even for your first party.
Oh, yeah. So this was full investment. Again, I worked in finance. I was lucky to turn VP at the age of 22. I did quite well, and I lived home with mom until 34. I had a lot of family support too, so I was able to save this. I am not a spender, so money that I make, I'm very frugal with it. So like I made sure that I always had this like nest egg in the event that I'd lose my job or something, I'd always be able to support myself.
Yeah. So random events, as I understand, or I assume, it was not very capital intensive. This is the first kind of pivot that you're making where there is capital required to do something, right?
Yes. And a lot of it is required because it's not just about the equipment, but it's the charging, the breakage, all of the fees, the general liability insurance, and all the other stuff that comes in, even as with 300 headphones. Now we're at, my God, we're over like 40,000 headphones. So you can just imagine the investment and the time and the storage and all the logistics that takes to pull stuff off. Yeah.
So what made you confident enough then to dip into your savings and to put the capital and the effort and your time into getting that first set of headphones and making that happen?
It's really seeing the vision, right? It's going, what if this kicks off and what happens? So I did have a backup plan. I made sure that the headphones that I purchased, and saying this out loud sounds crazy now, but that they all had an audio import so I can sell them on, I think it was eBay, to say, I'll just sell them as regular headphones and I would recoup some of my money back. So that was my backup plan if this was totally to fail.
Did you have any doubts or questions that you wanted to answer before you just made that purchase and went forward, or you just got off that ship and said, that's it, this needs to happen?
When I got off the ship, I knew this was going to be fun. I knew I already had a network, right? So I was doing crazy things with my group that people would come out to. And I was like, I could do this. I knew I could bring people out. And I really had a belief in this, the concept.
Yeah, and it sounds like that confidence comes from experience, right? And just wake up one day and decide. You had been running another business with 20,000 people voting with their dollars and their time that they want more from you.
Yeah, so I don't do many things that are like off the cuff. Everything is usually calculated. So if I sit in a seat, I'm doing it on purpose because I'm sitting in a location that has visibility. If I choose a color, if I do this, there's always a reason why.
Now that makes me want to have so many questions about why you're in that color room and why all these things are happening. I'm going to put those aside.
Yeah, I will have an answer for all of those things.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So when you started Random Events, you said your goal was, hey, I just want to have fun with my friends and I want to be compensated for my time to do it. Now that you are saying, I'm going to make quiet events a thing, how have your goals changed?
It's also interesting because I was working at the same time as building quiet events. Building quiet events wasn't to make money per se. And this is going to sound absolutely crazy. I just love building something and seeing it do really well. And the really well is two things, is having lots of people party and enjoy themselves. And the other aspect is the money. But it's not that I'm saving or need the money for something else. It's just the factor of showing proof that my concept and what I did and what I built is what is generating that.
It's a scorecard. It's the validation that absolutely resonates. How specific were your goals? Did you have a specific level of earnings or validation or achievement that you were hoping for when you first started Quiet Events?
Yeah, just I want to have a fun party every Friday, Saturday. That was it. I want to have 200 people. That was the only goal and could not even consider that it would be where it is.
Okay, so that was the vision. That's what you imagined it being. So I'm going to make an assumption that you did not imagine you'd be quitting your job. You imagined this would just
it wouldn't. That would be the stupidest thing. I had a fun job that I absolutely enjoyed. The people are amazing. Why would I ever quit my job to get a paycheck get a nice paycheck every 2 weeks that I didn't have to work incredibly hard or late for?
Yeah.
Why would I do it? I did.
Okay, so let's now answer that question of why. What was the pivot point where Quiet Events started to become more than you planned for it to be and you started to act differently?
There's essentially two pivot points. The first one was we started growing. We started getting more rentals, more people needing stuff, and my time just getting smaller. Like at 9 to 5 is where I regularly worked.
Yep.
And then I'd have to work after. And that started going to 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And then I actually hired an employee even before I quit.
Wow.
So I had one employee, two employees, and I was still working my full-time gig. Why? I am very scared to not have a paycheck come in every 2 weeks. And I always want to make sure I can take care of my people, the people that are working for me. So I knew if Quiet Events would do really bad, I still had income coming in that I could still pay them from my check that I'm doing every day.
Oh, smart.
Then what happened? There's this little show called Shark Tank.
I've heard of it.
So I went on Shark Tank about 2.5, 3 years into Quiet Events.
And what is the state of the business when you go on Shark Tank? How big is it? What's happening?
At that time, we made, it was like $124,000 in events, not rentals. It was just pure parties.
Okay.
And we're doing well, right? So I went on the show thinking, this will allow me to get other finance jobs and other technology jobs, because everyone, if I ever leave my company, they would want to talk to me and be the guy who spoke and was on Shark Tank. So that was why I did it. It wasn't about I needed the money, but it would have been really cool just to be part of it. I was working at Wells Fargo at the time, and I was like, okay, if this blows up, I am not going to be able to work here anymore. And I said, you know what, this is the time where either I do it or I don't do it. And if I quit, I know I'll be able to find a job somewhere else. It won't take that long, right? So quit my job, went on Shark Tank.
So let's talk about that moment of quitting your job, because it's so important.
Oh, yeah.
So the reason you quit your job, if I'm following, is you think the fact that you're going to be on Shark Tank is likely to precipitate so much success that you'll need to be ready to handle it.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, got it.
So there is that tipping point of going, I need to do this. Now, there's another reason why, too. It wasn't fair to my employees that they're working full time and I wasn't.
Okay.
I wanted to show them that I'm fully dedicated into this company, and then they don't also have to worry and they know where we're going.
Yeah, I can see the through line of you really caring about your employees and wanting to prioritize them. How was that decision? Was it an easy decision or something you belabored?
I flipped the coin about 50 times and was hoping that all 50 would go one way. So that would be like faith telling me. It didn't. It was 50-50. So it was absolutely challenging. But I talked to my manager that was at Wells Fargo. Everyone gave me the full support and even said, like, look, give it 6 months, give it a year. You have a place to come back if you need it.
Ah, okay. Was that the thing that ultimately made you go from indecision?
Yeah, there was a comfort level that was like, don't worry, you got this.
And how did you feel when you said, I quit, and woke up the next morning without that job?
I'm not sure I'm allowed to curse, but holy...
Was that scary?
It is absolutely that scary, because now it's like I need to make sure that revenue absolutely comes in, not to support my people, but to support me, and then to support all the new equipment and anything we want to change, the new website, this, that, right? So it's a very frightening but liberating as well, because at this point I got so much more done. The company scaled much quicker, which is one of the reasons why we also had an issue with Shark Tank.
Interesting. Okay, so what happened?
So basically the way Shark Tank works is you go on there, it's about 6 months before it even airs. So when I went on, we were at, like I said, it was like $140 some odd $1,000. We shot the episode. We did a deal with Cuban. So I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. This will be really fun. 2 things happened. Our revenue went to 210, or it was like 230,000 in such a small period of time. It has nothing to do with the show. It's just we got some big clients. We started throwing bigger parties. Yeah. And now the deal that we did on the show made absolute no sense. Right?
Got it. Because you were on the show when you still had the full-time job, and now you're full-time in this business.
And now I'm full-time. So
I see.
What happens is when you start focusing on this full-time, a lot changes and more revenue start coming in because of as much time you're spending in. So instead of spending 10% of my time, it was 100%, which helped sell more tickets, which helped add more stuff. And that was not because of the show, but the show made me quit because I was like, this is going to air.
So let's zero in on what changed when you were full-time doing this. How did your goals change, and how did your vision for the company change when you decided I'm all in?
At that point, we have to now starting on rentals, right? So we had to build a new website, which wasn't just focused on events. And we started doing some outbound sales and things like that. So it went from 80-90% of being events, selling tickets, to now 50-50 rentals and events. And that rental market is what started bringing us up much higher.
Got it. So, sounds like you saw the opportunity there. It just needed your time to bring in that business.
Correct.
And what about your personal goals? Did you have a different set of goals once this was full-time?
So the goal was basically the same thing as always had, which is how big can we take it, but yet still having fun, right? So there is a point where we made a decent amount of money to renegotiate, and they wouldn't do it. And what also happened at the same time is we did make a few seconds air on the upcoming episode. So in my eyes, it was like, oh, we got this. We were on TV. But one of our competitors saw it and then sent a cease and desist.
Oh.
So then we had to go through court for several months, or actually a year plus. The outcome was we spent about $60,000. We won, meaning that we got to keep our trademark, got to keep our everything. They lost theirs. But the show said, unfortunately, we can't air it because, one, we have this pending lawsuit now, and you also want to renegotiate. But looking back, probably the best thing that happened.
Why is that?
if we would have went on Shark Tank, there's a bunch of things that would have transpired. One is we would have made air, and guess what? You'd have a million people going, this is really cool. What's going to happen? They're going to be like, I need equipment. So I need to buy another $10, $20, $30,000. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in money that I absolutely wouldn't have when I was younger. You'd have all these people that said, oh, this is a really good idea. I want to do it in my home state. So then we'd have competitors that would pop up really quickly. We would then have to figure out logistics. Where are we going to store all the stuff? How are we going to store the stuff? Hiring people. And now we're in a contract with Mark Cuban. And then I'm going to have to spend my days reporting and giving his team all the stuff that's happening. So it would have been a lot of work, a lot of money, and just scary of a competitive landscape. Not airing allowed us to grow organically and take over much more of the markets without having competitors do it. Generate income, take that income, reinvest, and buy more equipment without being in the negative. So it was a much smarter way of doing it.
Am I correct that not only did you not take Mark Cuban's money, but you've bootstrapped the entire business to date?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Now, that is a somewhat unusual decision. Was that very deliberate that you said, I want to be the sole owner of this business and not take other capital?
That comes back to my random events days. Because I did that partnership and then had such a bad experience with that, I was like, I would never want to bring someone else on board if I don't absolutely need to. I thought I needed it back in the day, but that's actually not what I needed. I just needed an employee, but I was scared to give out money. You go, oh yeah, I'll give you a percentage. We'll figure this out. And it sounds great and it sounds easy, but it's actually harder to do than just hiring an employee.
So that makes sense now why being a solo founder and not taking capital actually same root cause for both of those very deliberate decisions.
Yes. And it's a big investment initially, but not that bad. So you're able to then make money, invest, make money, invest. It was doing it slowly. And I developed my own website. I built everything myself. I created all the content. I didn't hire anyone to do this, so I didn't need additional money. It was if you need it, I'll figure out, I'll do it. And then now I've learned that let just the experts do it and pay someone because things can get done faster, better.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson. So you said when you first quit the job at Wells, one of the things that made you feel comfortable about it was that the door was always open to come back. What was the point at the trajectory of growing Quiet Events when you stopped wanting to look for that open door behind you and said, I can always go back to Wells? Was there a point where you said, wow, this is really working? Forget that. I'm on a totally new path. I'm in.
I still look back at Wells.
Yeah? How interesting.
As a CEO, what we never get is a pat on the back. You're doing a great job. I love what you're doing. You've done so well. When you work for a company, your manager does that. I do miss that. As entrepreneurs, as just people, we just love encouragement. During the pandemic, I actually worked for Samsung for 3 years. And I walked away from Quiet Events for a bunch of different reasons. And that was a great experience. I loved working on that team. I learned a lot, and I got that camaraderie and working with people that were in technology. But yet my team saw me being able to be removed because at this point, I wasn't on top of them. So they actually loved it too. Quiet Events didn't increase in revenue, but it stayed flat and there was no issues, which makes sense, right? These are guys that are operational that did their job. But as a CEO, you're responsible for understanding what's next. How do we build? And that was very apparent. So the company did amazing by itself. It grew a little bit, but not tremendously. And then when I left Samsung again to focus on it, we then took another trajectory back up.
Why did you choose to go to Samsung and then leave Samsung again to go back? What's that chapter about?
This was during the pandemic. Samsung reached out and knew that I had a lot of connections. So it said, can you help us fulfill a couple positions? And I was like, wow, this position is exactly what I love doing. And I've never been on the other side. I also loved Samsung, loved Android, loved the entire team. So I was like, if you would, let me interview and see if I still have it. So they let me join and I did really, really well. Now, why would I leave? It's really because of AI. I saw AI as a way to quickly change Quiet Events in so many different ways that if I wasn't dedicated in doing it, I would not see it. I left Samsung, came back to Quiet Events full time, implemented a lot of AI teaching me about the website using Shopify. And because of that, in only 6 months, I was able to do what I normally would do in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I saw that vision. I had to make sure I started taking control of it.
And that initial thought to, I don't want to say leave Quiet Events, but Quiet Events is running on its own while you go to Samsung. Is it because, if I understand correctly, The pandemic's going on, business is slower anyway, so you have the excess capacity to do. It was really about
Yeah.
the time. The
Yeah,
time.
exactly. Yeah, it's a time in the world. Like, I cannot sit still, right? During the pandemic, if someone's like, hey, do you want to work for a fun company that does this really cool tech and you can work from home instead of watching Netflix all day? Yeah, absolutely.
I always love to end interviews after we've looked retrospectively for this time to say, let's look forward for a minute. What are you most excited about that's coming up on the horizon?
Yeah, actually, so we have new equipment that we specifically designed for almost like an all-purpose, right? I want to be able to do everything for everyone. So we built a system that essentially does that, which means that we will get rid of a lot of older SKUs. We're building in a lot of automation, which is both AI and manual, where people can come to our site, take a quiz, and know which is the best for them, and then automatically get rentals. So that's kind of like my next vision, right? Is automating as much as I possibly can and reducing the amount of styles that people can choose from. We just had a client that's a basketball stadium, 15,000 headphones. And imagine, instead of the PA system that's blasting all the music and all the scores and all this other stuff, you see the game, you take your headphones off, and all you hear is the squeaking of the sneakers and people yelling and screaming. But if you want to hear the play-by-play, you can put the headphones on. Stuff like that is so cool. So because I love technology, we're working with a big company that does these hacker conferences, right? And it's 8,000 headphones, and it's just tons of frequencies and challenges that we have to overcome. And I love figuring out challenges. That's what makes me super happy and seeing these cool things. That's kind of like the next step, is being able to take a step back after we have all this stuff put in place and be more of a business development, finding these really niche, cool things that we can essentially do.
I love that, because that makes me so excited as a fan and as a customer that I'm going to get to go to all of these new great events that you are scheming up, from basketball games to you name it. So I look forward to seeing those.
One last one, Listen Unplugged. We've created a situation where you'll hear a band of 4, but you listen to them via the headphones, and you can tune into each one of the instruments independently or everything together.
What?
It's a unique and super cool experience. So you can listen to the person singing essentially a cappella, and then you can tune into the bass and hear that. Then you can tune into the piano, and then you can hear them all together. So you get to hear an audio sounding quality when it's all mastered together right in front of you, and it sounds so great. So that's my next kind of fun big thing.
That was Will Petz talking about his journey building quiet events. Here are 3 lessons that stood out in that episode for me. First, learn about business through a low-risk experiment first. Will started random events while still working at his full-time job in finance, and it was a relatively low-risk way to learn about business while having fun. He learned huge lessons there, like the fact that he didn't want to work with a business partner in the future, and he carried those lessons forward when he started quiet events. He got to make mistakes when the stakes were lower, and it set him up to be more successful when the stakes were higher later. 2, build a community. Will built a community of 20,000 people in the New York area who were interested in going to unusual events. That was a huge asset for him. When he started quiet events, he launched by blasting the message out to that community, and they became his first customers. 3, inspiration can come from anywhere, even a cruise with your parents. You never know where your next great inspiration will come from, so just get in the habit of being someone who gets out there and does stuff. Will got the inspiration for quiet events after experiencing his first silent disco on a cruise. This is Dana Moriello, and I can't wait to see you next week on This Is a Thing.